Good evening, everyone. It's all getting dark now early, although 6:30 is a little late for me to be eating. In case you don't know who you are or why you're here, I'm Kathy Hester. Welcome to my kitchen, and we are about to unveil my vegetable soup that I put in the slow cooker this morning. See, there's a reason I do these things in the morning. Like after 5, I'm like at 50% brain capacity. So, let's see. If anybody's here, say hi, how you're doing. This is probably later than people thought I would get to it. But I took a nap. I was feeling a little under the weather. So what went into the pot before we cooked it for 8 hours is I put in some potatoes, some veggie mix, which was just frozen. A veggie mix with corn, carrots, peas, green beans, and this one happened to have some lima beans. I put in some tomato puree that I wasn't sure was potent enough, so let's go find out. And I'm trying to think what else I might have put in there. There really wasn't much. I did put in some chickenless bouillon that was already made. So let me let you see this. Hey guys, you guys all came up real fast. Hi Brandy. And oh good, Brandy actually made some soup too. So she made hers without tomato, and I put mine with tomato. And I tell you what, there's a huge difference in the smell once things start cooking. So this is a really nice thick soup. I tend to like pretty thick soups. So I'm going to take a couple tasting spoons. And let's talk about this for a minute in case this is your first one. And hi Jackie, if I haven't said that already. And whoever's on, feel free to say if you've made a slow cooker soup, if you have a slow cooker, if you use your Instant Pot as a slow cooker. You can even just say hi. That's fine with me too. So the trick about slow cooking is you have to reseason before you serve. No one believes me until they do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure these potatoes are nice and cooked. Yeah, they're fine. So I'm going to take a little bit, just basically of the brothy part. And there's no salt in here at this point. And if you don't use salt at all, I'm going to give you a trick if you don't have a salt substitute or some other things that you can use. The veggies have melded together really well to kind of oomph up that broth. So the first things I want to do, and Brandy added 6 cups of water because she didn't use the tomatoes, and she adjusted the bouillon. And this is totally a make it up yourself sort of deal. Whatever you have on hand. Now, I knew earlier today, so this is some homemade tomato powder. And I've got my little silica gel from a vitamin bottle in there to keep it, because I live in a very humid climate. Okay, so we could use tomato powder. When you smell it, it smells darker than other things. Or I could add some tomato paste, or both. I have a lot of tomato powder. So I'm going to go ahead, because I feel like what's happening now is we've got a really nice developed middle note. But we don't really have anything super dark umami yumminess going on that I can taste really fully. And we don't have a higher kind of brighter note either. So let me get a regular measuring spoon. I think I'm going to start off and stir in half a teaspoon of tomato powder. I'm probably going to end up with 1 teaspoon, but let's start with half, because we can't take anything back out, right? So I want to go ahead and stir that in. We could have put in some tomato powder in the beginning too. I just wanted to give a chance for the new tomato puree that I got at Lidl's, is what I was told it is, over on YouTube. So I'm going to taste this again. Oh, already you can taste that there's something a little bit different in there. So I am going to go ahead and add a teaspoon of it. So a teaspoon of tomato powder is what I'm adding in there. I'm also going to go ahead and add another half teaspoon of onion powder and half teaspoon of garlic powder. Now, if you're not using salt, this is always a good thing to do. It adds that kind of tongue feel, this kind of sharper flavor that you're used to getting from salt. And so another thing I do is I add ground celery seed for that. So we're just going to put in, again, about 1/8 of a teaspoon. And even if you added all these goodies in at the beginning next time, if you're like, oh, well, Kathy already did the work for me, I don't have to look at this and decide anymore, what's going to happen is some of those flavors are still going to be different. Either your spices could be older or newer, and newer meaning fresher and probably more flavorful, or it's just different than mine today. So the lesson to be learned today is not how to not have to adjust, but just accept that you adjust things. If you're cooking something else on the stove, you adjust it all the time. I want to make sure we get this in there really good. Let me take another little taste. That's going pretty good. I think I want to add another 1/2 teaspoon of paprika. And I'm going to add about a teaspoon, and I know in my hand where about a teaspoon is, about another teaspoon of marjoram. And I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. Okay? And this little scoop is 2 tablespoons. Now, even though there was some nutritional yeast flavor from that chickenless bouillon, I still think, again, I'm trying to build that umami darker layer in our soup right now. And before I had talked about maybe just using balsamic vinegar to as a topping for serving, and you could do that too. I'm deciding right now as we're going along if I'm going to go ahead and put it in and let that just already be the flavor. It'll be really pretty on top. And Deborah says it looks amazing. And Joanne says it looks so tasty. And you guys saw, those of you who were there this morning, and I put the link to watch the video in some places. But if you go to Healthy Slow Cooking on Facebook, you can find it. It's not very long. None of these videos have been very long. Okay, I'm going to taste that. Oh yeah. You guys, this is so different. And one thing you can do, because you can taste a little bit of the rawness of the spices, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and change that temperature to high and just let it kind of simmer for a minute or two more. You don't have to do that. I'm just being super picky because I think I'm going to eat on this for a few days. And Deborah says she also often ends up using balsamic vinegar in her soups. And this morning we also talked about how I could have taken like about a 1 inch by, or 2 inch by quarter to, or half to 1 inch peel of a lemon, take out the white pith, and I could have put it in there and cooked it. And that gives you a really nice bright flavor too. We were also talking about how we could put beans in there. We could have put other vegetables. If I wanted to put in some quick cooking vegetables like broccoli or asparagus, or in general green peas go into that, I'm okay with my green peas not being bright green in my veggie soup because I didn't grow up that way. So another thing we could have added for umami is some mushroom powder. And I want to go ahead and try this. So this is the Trader Joe's mushroom one. This is not SOS compliant though. However, you could just use some powdered mushroom. And we talked about with Jackie and I too, we both take dried mushrooms, or you could dehydrate your mushrooms to dried in the dehydrator. Just make sure they get crispy. So I even take ones that are already dry, crisp them up a little bit more so that they are going to really go into a powder well when I use my spice grinder. If they are not crispy enough, they're just going to kind of and not really grind up well. This one has salt, dried onions, mustard seeds, porcini mushroom powder, white button mushroom powder, crushed red pepper, black pepper, and thyme. So I'm going to do what I told you. I'm going to smell it. And I think it could deepen the flavor. But I'm not sure that this one needs it anymore. I think with that, I don't know who's trying to walk down our street, but Max, our puppy, is not happy about it, as you can hear. But I think I'm going to go ahead and put in some balsamic vinegar instead. And the soup is delicious, Brandy said. So Brandy's making kind of her own version, because this is a soup you should make your own version of. If you're at the point of your cooking career where you need to go by a recipe, you certainly can go by this recipe, and later on I will come back out with it. I've been feeling a little under the weather, so it might be next week, but seriously, a pound of frozen vegetables, 3 or 4 cups of chopped potatoes. I think I ended up using 2 cups of tomato puree, but if you were using crushed tomatoes, you probably could just use a can, which would be like a cup and a half. And I put in some turmeric, garlic powder, onion powder, thyme, marjoram, paprika, celery seed. That's what went in the first, along with some bouillon, so some broth. So you could use water and bouillon, water, and I try not to cook too much with nutritional yeast, so if you don't have proper bouillon and you know you're just going to add some nutritional yeast at the end, just go ahead and save it for then. And Joanne says the Napa Valley Natural Grand Reserve Vinegar is great on the soup in the bowl as a swirl, and so is this. This is a Oh, actually, I think this is the same thing you're talking about. So let's look at this for a second. What a coincidence. So I got this at the Amazon return store that I've been suiting up and going out to. It's in a warehouse, so there's lots of personal space that you can have. But I think I got 2 bottles of this for like $3. You get it really, really cheap. It's kind of like when they have groceries, it's like a grocery outlet. So this is the Grand Reserve 25 stars, and it is a very, very thick, like, reduction of a balsamic. And it's, again, if you're unsure of how that is, smell it. And it's like, ooh. You could also put a little lemon juice in there if you wanted to, too. Or I actually have some lemon and lime powder, and this would be a good use for that, too. Yeah, it does say 25 stars. I did not. It's the fancy one. I found that. I thought it was the cheap one, and then when I went to swirl it, I was like, ooh, this may be nicer than my really nice vinegar I thought I had. Deborah says it's the best one. And Joanne says, yes, it is that one. She paid more attention than I do. But that's Joanne for you. And Ashley said, look great. Oh, Ashley went on a job interview today. So I and the world want to know how you felt about the job interview. If you would like to talk about it, and if you thought it was a job you were interested in after you talked to them, we support you either way. So, but it was nice to see you this morning, and it's good to see you again today. And another thing too, so in reality, I make soups really thick. You can see how thick that is. If it was thinner than this, I probably would mash up some of these potatoes to make it thick and creamy. You don't like your soups this thick? Add some extra water or broth. You don't have to be like me. It will not offend me in the absolute least. So Joanne says you can get it at Prouts, or did you mean Sprouts? Probably Sprouts is what I'm thinking, but not at the price you, yeah. No, a lot of the things I get at thrift stores, or this Amazon return store is like 40,000 square feet. But like we went this weekend and we got some gluten-free vegan gnocchi, but that was it. But before, we've had 2 rolling carts full of things that we found. Like we got 8 cases of Amy's soups for $7 for the case. So we found some really good deals. And Ashley says I did. It went really well, and I passed the interview. Yay! I'm so happy for you. I have one more assessment, and they will likely go with it if they decide to take me on. Excellent. So you have to keep us updated, please. And I will be keeping my thoughts out towards you getting this job. Because I know you said you lost a job when the pandemic started to happen, and I am so glad that you're finding something you want to do, as well as that you get to get a new job. Yeah, and Joanne says stoops. Yeah, stews that are soups, soups that are kind of stews. You kind of, live the life. And Deborah says Whole Foods sells it, but going to their webpage there's often sales. So that's awesome too. So what do you think? What are you guys voting? Balsamic in the soup or balsamic on top of the soup? I'll let you decide that. I do use some salt, and so does Cheryl. At this point, it's really, really close. So if I was not going to put salt in here, I might put a little bit of salt substitute, or let me tell you exactly. I would probably put a little more celery seed in here. Maybe a quarter teaspoon more celery seed. And I think I would probably go ahead and do another half teaspoon of garlic powder and a half teaspoon of onion powder. It's kind of making my own salt-free substitute on the fly. So that's what I often do with that. And if you add in some tomato concentrate too, that's going to have some sodium. It's like 50 milligrams of sodium for 2 tablespoons. And we could do that too. We could put, that's the only difference really between using tomato powder and tomato paste, is the tomato paste it's a little bit rounder of a flavor, and it would add a little bit of the sodium to it. Okay, I've got 3 votes for on top. So I'm still going to I'm going to put like a teaspoon or 2, since I got this out of the, I got it out of the fridge for this, so why not? That's about. Hello, they're little soup eyes too. You can't miss the soup eyes because it's like Halloween time, right? So let's just mix that in, and we'll notice just a slight shade in the color too. And that strained tomato puree that I used this morning was a little on the weak side. If I had used crushed tomatoes, I probably would not consider putting this in. It gives you just kind of a flatter taste. I would not actually probably buy that product, though I won't be using it in a soup again because I bought 2. And I didn't even finish one up in this, so you guys are going to see it again. So let me try it one more time with that little addition. Yeah, actually that makes it quite nice. So I definitely recommend going with a little tomato paste, even if unless the tomato flavor is like boom right in your face, I would go ahead and do that. Yeah, and so Joanne says she would like the balsamic to be on top so it could be tweaked by the eater's taste buds. And I'm probably going to put about 1.5 teaspoons of salt for this whole thing. We don't do a whole lot of salt, but obviously if you don't do salt at all, that's too much. So if you don't do salt, I am not telling you to put salt in your food. So don't hear that as an excuse. But I think last year near the end of winter, I finally got Cheryl to accept eating soups as dinners. She thought a soup, and I mean, this is a hearty soup. Look at this. This is like potato stew more than it is. When you hear somebody doesn't want to eat soup for dinner, you think, oh, is she serving a broth? No, this is a meal. And honestly, if you wanted to make it more of a meal, if you had leftover rice or quinoa, you could serve it over there too. Add it in to just kind of make it part of the stew, or serve it over. And that would work really well too. And in fact, now that I'm thinking about it, another way you could do this was season it with traditionally Indian seasonings and make it into a curry. Yeah, that's spot on for me. So I feel good about that. And my squash goals. There's no squash in this soup though. Let me set this over here before I make a mess with it. Oh, and Ashley likes hearty soups too. Yeah, hearty soups are pretty awesome. So let's see. Look. Ooh, it's a cauldron for my soup. And before we do this, let me tell you too. or remind you, I've got 2 Halloween, I did not put this back in my tomato powder. Kathy, after 4, not the smartest one. Okay, so I do my normal 2 classes on Kathy's Cooking Club. So you can still take the It's Fall Y'all Instant Pot class that was last weekend. And not this weekend, but the next weekend, I've got a whole Instant Pot soup class. It's going to be so fun and delicious. So you can take that, and you can find that actually wherever you're watching this. Somewhere around there, you'll find the information. Just go and type classes, or you can go to kathyhester.podia.com. But this month, I'm trying out a new platform as well, and it's Chibo, Chibo.io, Chibo.io. And everybody's classes are in there, so you have to kind of scroll, but you will see mine. I'm doing on the, actually, let me tell you what the real dates are. I'm pretty sure I wrote this down in a note now, so that I won't mess it up. Yes, it is the 23rd. So it's a Friday, October 23rd at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to do a plant-based Halloween, and I'm decking out the house. I'm wearing a costume. It's one of your 2 chances to party with me this Halloween. And by party, I mean we're going to make a Swamp Monster jackfruit gumbo with black forbidden rice, and we're going to make a petrified pecan pumpkin shake with allergy-friendly alternatives, so you don't have to use the pecans. So it'll be okay. We'll use oats if we don't use the pecans. And you can make it along with me. As soon as you sign up for the class, you will get the recipes. The classes at Chibo are $30 each. And then the other class I'm going to do is on the Halloween day, October 31st at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to do a Harry Potter Halloween party. And you guys know I love me some Harry Potter, and in fact, you can't see it, but behind you, we've got candles hanging from the ceiling over the dining room table. And because Cheryl has to put the batteries in them, a couple come on, then a couple more, so the first ones just came on. They make me so happy all winter long. So, and the Harry Potter class is good to bring your kids, but you can be a kid like me, a 55-year-old. I love Halloween kid is just as welcome as a 10-year-old. Why can't I go trick-or-treating this year, kid? Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to make pumpkin juice, not by just juicing a pumpkin. There's a lot more involved, but there is no added sugar. It does use some apple juice, but it is Halloween. So I kind of feel like some of these are a little treaty, but if it's on Halloween and you're not eating straight sugar out of a straw, you know, I think we're doing a lot better. So pumpkin juice, I'm going to make a butterbeer syrup, which was a huge hit at my party a few years ago. And I have kind of a whole food plant-based alternative to that one that we'll talk about too. It's not a one-for-one, but it fits into the diet, so that's important. And we're going to make my favorite thing to say, cockroach clusters, which are not nearly as gross, and they're 100% vegan. And if you make them with peanuts, they taste like Snickers. So what we do is we have some dates, we stuff some crunchy stuff in there, and we can either roll it in some melted chocolate, vegan chocolate chips, or if that's too much oil for you, you can actually roll them in cocoa. And they're still creepy, and they'll still make a crunch. It's awesome. Okay, so let me come back to these. Hearty soup's thick, a thought. Jackie says, can you please use the rest of the tomato puree and tweak it to make a tomato soup? Oh, sure. Grilled cheese and tomato or tomato rice soup are so good together. And Joanne, you're outing me. She said, aren't those candles up all year round? Absolutely. But the batteries die about summer. So I have to like push Cheryl because I think she's 4 inches taller than me, so she can reach them better than I can to change the batteries. And Jackie says, same as 60-year-old who loves Halloween and Harry Potter. Absolutely. And Deborah says, thank you. So anyhow, that's what we're looking at. And I'm starting to get our cauldron bowls. And I think I showed you these the other day, but you can never see them too much. We went to where did we go? We went to Home Goods, and they had here, it's Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown bowls. So we've been actually that's our main dinner dish as far as that goes. But let me, you guys have some questions while I'm trying to not splatter all my dinner all over me while I'm putting it in the bowl. Then we'll do the swirl, and I will let you go on your merry way. Oh, I wasn't very excited for dinner, but now I am. This is what the beauty is, though, about, I'm also going to put this in the sink. I'm trying to make as little cleanup for myself as possible. If you're not feeling good, or you're just feeling tired or overwhelmed, making slow cooker soup is such an awesome thing to do. I'm putting it back on warm. Let me just get this little bit off of there. And, okay, and let's get that going. And I'm moving, since we're going to do that, I just want to pull up a few pieces of veggies too, so you guys can see those really good. And Ashley wants to know where I got the cauldrons. I have the big cauldrons and the little cauldrons. Usually at Crate and Barrel, they have nice Halloween stuff. Ooh, this is so thick. Do you guys see how thick this is? And I don't know if I can make a spider web the way this came out, but you can kind of make a spider web. I think that's close enough. Does it really look like a spider web? Oh. You guys, so I did that, and of course I tasted the spoon, and I was like, got that yummy, sweet, thick hit of balsamic vinegar, and it really does, it just elevates everything it's on. I would use between a half to a whole teaspoon, but I think it's hard to tell when I had to shake it, but I think it's pretty close to a half a teaspoon. So you're not using a whole lot unless you want to. I would not change your soup for anything. And great, yeah, and probably before all this happens, so next time I'll try and do something else. We've got little cauldrons for appetizer soups. Then with this, one time I actually made sauteed mushrooms and rosemary, and then I made a nice piece of cornbread in a skull mold and put over the top and dusted it with paprika, and the lights were dim, it looked all creepy, it was really fun. And Jackie said that her temperatures are supposed to lower by the weekend, and she's thinking red lentil chili. That sounds delicious too. We definitely need to make a chili. And then I have that autumn lentil blend that I got. It's called something else when you get it at the Indian market. But the very first time I got it was at Whole Foods, but they haven't carried it in several years. But it's a mixture of different lentils, because some lentils, like red lentils that are in this actually as well, they kind of make that thicker broth. Other things are there for textures. And so it's kind of fun to have a little bit of all that playing around. Do you guys have any questions about this at all? You can also look, because last week I made a yellow doll, and I don't know that I remember the other thing I made because it's past my thinking time, I guess. But if you look on Healthy Slow Cooking and you keep scrolling down, you'll see these live videos from last week. And I tried to put part 1 and part 2 on them, because when I'm doing slow cooker videos, I'm making them in the morning or afternoon. Then I'm doing what you guys just saw me do now. Cashew cream on top to make a spider web would be awesome too. That's true. Or even some black bean puree. You could do that like in a piping bag. Okay, guys, I don't know what I'm going to be making tomorrow or how much soup is getting eaten up tonight, but it was wonderful to see you this evening as my candles started popping on back there. And I hope you're as excited about Halloween as I am, or at least excited about fall. Okay, have a wonderful day. Everybody keep Ashley in your thoughts that she gets this awesome job, okay? Talk to you soon.